So, for the last 48 years, the Toronto Blue Jays have given their fans many, many thrills, some highs, some mediums, some lows. Even the lows were thrilling the first season when Doug Ault hit two home runs at old Exhibition Stadium in the middle of a snowstorm to win our first game. To the championship era from 1985 to 93 and the reclamation in the 2010s and the what they call the playoff contenders that have been knocking the door last few seasons. But George Springer, with his big three-run home run to make it a 4-3 Game 7 victory over the very talented and the very dynamite Seattle Mariners, will probably go down as one of the greatest moments in Canadian sports history. This is kind of ironic, ladies and gentlemen, because we never thought there was something to compare with Jose Bautista's bat flip in the 2015 campaign and that big victory against the Texas Rangers in what they call the full inning from hell. Bautista, his cosmic nephew is Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and of course the big home runs against the Yankees, what they call bat flip 2 and the famous home run that put pretty well Toronto in go. The Yankees lose. That had enough drama, but the series against Seattle had tremendous drama because when you lose your first two games at home and you got to go in your opposition field, there's a lot of factors play out. I think the main factor, ladies and gentlemen, that Toronto Blue Jays are such an international team. Anytime Toronto plays in the States, it doesn't matter if it's an American League team or a National League team. Look at all the Canadian fans around in Seattle for the contests. I think basically, I know this is totally bizarre, I think Toronto won the series because they outcoached Seattle. Toronto made the right decisions, bringing back Guzman and Bassett off the, not say the injured list, but did not play list. And he won the series without Bichette. Bichette was the second best hitter in the National League this year for average behind Aaron Judge, almost led in hits as well. So what can we expect with Springer, Guerrero, and Clement and the boys against the Dodgers? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you take this the right way. Just like the Montreal Canadiens in 2021, even though they didn't win the Stanley Cup, there's no way in the world that people will be disappointed if the Blue Jays don't beat the Dodgers. If anything, Dodgers have better pitching. They have better hitting with Ohtani and Freeman and Betts and Hernandez. And they have a better bullpen for sure. But just like 1980, 88 against the A's, just like 1990 against the A's, you never know in baseball. Now, what are the three key factors going to be there for Toronto to win? Well, they have to basically go ahead early and stay. They're not a good comeback team. Now, they could have won 4 straight against Seattle, but the Springer, it wasn't even a beanball, it was a leg ball, as we call it. He didn't play for the rest of the game. That was a big factor. But they can score runs. Now, the AL East this year, or the former teams, the AL East were the stronger. So the Yankees, they got past Boston. I think Toronto would have been at a harder shot against Boston than the Yankees. But the Yankees underestimated Toronto. See, the factors in baseball, ladies and gentlemen, are momentum. Toronto has a momentum right now because being a team for a whole nation, the media is on their side. No one's criticized the Blue Jays after losing the first 2 games. They would basically say, listen, we've seen this before, and we all remember what happened with the Yankees in 1978 when they lost the first 2 games in the Dodger Stadium, had to go back to New York and won 3 straight. See, momentum in baseball is not like hockey, ladies and gentlemen. But the Springer Dinger last night, up there with Encarcio hitting the big home run to win the wild card game against Baltimore, the big Bautista bat flip. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you something. If this is the first time you're hearing about the bat flip, there's a few people out there don't know about it. He got heavy criticism over that for throwing the bat. But he said later on that was the Latino way of doing things. The bat flip is basically the Toreador because we all knew that Texas wouldn't come back. Now, Dyson, who served up the gopher ball, was a former Blue Jay, and allegedly, through the grapevine, he was bad-mouthing the Blue Jays prior to the big hit. Now, that whole big inning, if you want to go back. Now, before I leave you go, I want to compare the World Series finalists of the Blue Jays 2025 with the 92 and 93 team. No disrespect. They brought in Molitor, they brought in Ricky Henderson, they brought in Devon White, they brought in Dave Winfield, they brought in some key players. Those Toronto teams, there were like singles, doubles, and triple hitters. Yes, they had home run power, but not like the home run power for Guerrero and Springer and everybody else. Now, I think a factor in the World Series will be this. If Bichette comes back and if David Schneider is used a little bit more, I don't think they used him much against Seattle, because Seattle's very similar to Toronto in the way they play. They live on the home run. And if you can tell me, other than Aaron Judge, the first team to have a 60 home run hitter and lose in the playoffs like that, Raleigh was tremendous. And like, Seattle, a kitchen sink team, a lot of players from another squads. But like I said, the bottom three of Toronto, Kinnear Falafel, Ramirez, and Clement, Barger could have a super series. That's a player a lot of people gave up on. So what Toronto did in recent years, they kept some of their core prospects. They got some key players in trades. They got certain players. I think they got 8 starters they can use. And Savage, too, could be a factor as well, because he's turning in kind of the Bob Welch was in 1978 in relation to Jackson. So my prediction in the series, I can't make any predictions right now because I really don't know what Toronto will do in Los Angeles. They've always had a hard time playing there. But if Ohtani has one of these big days again, 3 home runs and pitching, Ohtani's going to start at least twice, and you're not going to take out his bat. So I really, for Toronto to win, you just got to be, one game at a time, or je la foi, I would say it in French. But all I know, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been watching the Fox baseball, seeing the way Ortiz is giving Guerrero so much Latino heat and Latino support, and to see Jeter and Rodriguez take it. Ortiz basically has always been a big fan of the Blue Jays, and just like Vladdy Sr. and Roberto Clemente, the Latino is strong. He is the Latino superstar, or will be, that Ortiz was for years. Until Ortiz showed up in Boston, they didn't win a World Series, but sometimes you need that Latino hate. God bless you, Eddie Guerrero. I always like to quote Eddie Guerrero when I can. So, ladies and gentlemen, get your popcorn ready. It's going to be one of the biggest series in Canadian history since the 2021 Stanley Cup Series against Tampa Bay. I know. Let's go Blue Jays. Let's play ball. It's going to be amazing. And as a person who's been a Blue Jay fan for all these years, all I can say is that get your flags out, and we want it all, and we want it now. Have a good one.